Check, check. Okay, the time is 6:30. It is Tuesday, September 24th. And at this time, I would like to call our City Council meeting to order. We will start with Pledge of Allegiance, and then invocation will be given by 4th Ward Council Member Connor Wood. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If you'd please remain standing and make reverence in the way in which you are accustomed, as Mr. David Frank of Temple Beth Israel gives our invocation today. Mr. Frank.
Thank you for inviting me to be here today. It's a great privilege. O Creator of all, you have planted within our hearts the seeds of love and peace. You have given us the hands with which to help one another. On our shoulders you have placed the mantles of responsibility, and you have bestowed on us the intellects that raise us above all creatures. May we, with wise decisions, dispose of our responsibilities with understanding and with justice, and may we find peace among ourselves and within ourselves as we work together this day. Amen.
Madam Clerk, if you'll proceed with a roll call, please.
Mayor Mahoney,
Present.
Councilmember Robinson,
Present.
Vice Mayor Dancy,
Present.
Council-
Present.
Councilmember Gunn,
Present.
Councilmember Wood,
Present.
Councilmember Hunt,
Present.
Councilmember Forgrave.
Present.
All right, thank you very much. Looking for a motion and support to adopt the agenda.
So moved. I support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion on the item? Seeing or hearing none, the clerk will tally and display the vote. All right, agenda passes unanimous. That brings us down to item number 5, presentations and proclamations. And item A proclamation thanking Bob Bull and Community Mental Health Partners of Southeast Michigan for their work to prevent suicide in our veteran community. Mr. Bull, if you would like to come up to the podium, I'm going to come and join you and just read this proclamation and present it to you. All right, Mr. Bull, thank you so much for being here. I met Mr. Bull at the Ruck Walk Run this year, and I believe everything happens for a reason. Mr. Bull's doing great work, and September is Suicide Awareness Month, so I thought it would be not just appropriate to write this resolution, but to present it to you here in today's meeting. So I just want to read this resolution to you and present it to you, and then also give you a couple minutes to talk about the work that you do. Okay. Whereas September is National Suicide Awareness Month, and whereas members of our military may experience stress and grief during or after their service that can influence their mental health, and whereas military service in the United States is voluntary and those selflessly choosing to serve our country often do so with great personal sacrifice in order to ensure the freedoms our nation holds dear, and whereas our veterans and active service members, suicide outnumbers combat deaths and are the second leading cause of death. And whereas in the state of Michigan, there are nearly 200 veteran and service member suicides annually. Whereas in 2022, President Biden federally mandated 988, the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, to quickly connect people with the support they need. Call or text 988 to reach a trained crisis counselor for free, confidential support right away. And whereas Community Mental Health Partners of Southeast Michigan, a group of local community members and organizations, is dedicated to raising awareness of veteran suicide and works to support military families as they fight the stigma surrounding mental health challenges. whereas Community Mental Health Partners of Southeast Michigan assist those current and former service members as they seek support and treatment to help them heal, and whereas the goal of the group is to prevent any suicide from any of our country's current and former defenders. Now, therefore, I, Daniel J. Mahoney, Mayor of the City of Jackson, do hereby express my sincere appreciation to Bob Bull and Community Mental Health Partners of Southeast Michigan for their tireless efforts among our military populations and for being the beacon of hope for when some feel hopeless. I encourage the residents of the City of Jackson to offer their support to this important cause as well.
Goodness. It says so much. Well, as the mayor was good enough to point out, my name is Bob Bull. I am a Vietnam veteran, so that means that I'm a lot older than most of you here. I served back in 69, 70 in country. One of the things that we saw when I was in the service, of course, was deaths of our comrades, it was a tough thing. We experienced that. We still bring that with us. We still talk about it all the time. It's one of the reasons why I got involved in what I do. But it was our comrades in arms, and after 10, 20 years, 30 years, you don't have that kind of hold, and that kind of situation in your life doesn't have that kind of hold on you anymore. But then you encounter the things that you never expected to encounter, and that is suicide. I never saw it. We never talked about it as children. We never saw it in school. I never even knew it other than the stupid things that showed up on TV once in a while in a movie or a crime scene or something. But the government's been tracking suicides in active duty military since the Civil War. And so it's been a prevalent thing. I got involved in this right around the time my granddaughter took her own life, about 9 years ago. And I wondered why, and I didn't understand. I still don't really understand today. I know the things that caused this. I know that somebody's not doing what needs to be done to fix it. So I was like, as my wife says, well, you must be somebody else. And I said, yes, that's me. I'm the commander of the Washtenaw County Council of Veterans. I'm an active member of the VCAT for Region 9. I'm the Quality of Life Chairman for that. I'm also the chairman of the Valued Veteran Program for the State of Michigan Moose Association. But it's not enough. We are losing, just on the veteran side of it, we're losing roughly 40 to 45 veterans a day. Active duty military, we're losing at least one a day. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services in 2022 reported that we lost over 49,000 people nationwide to suicide. That's one every 11 minutes. And it's not getting any better. Housing's still hard. Jobs are still hard to find. Transportation is hard. Jobs are just not there for a lot of these people. They can't work anymore like they used to be able to. One real quick story, I was working I had my own gun shop back in the 80s. And everybody knew I was a veteran. I dressed that way. But I used to have a guy that would come into my shop, but he would only come in when the store was empty. So we eventually got to talking, and I found out that he used to be a welder. And he was a good welder, I guess. And he loved the job, so when he got out of the service, he went back to welding. The problem is, if any of you have ever done gas welding, oxyacetylene welding, you turn the oxygen off, and it pops. And that drove him nuts. It's almost like a gunshot. He just hit the floor. Well, everybody in the shop thought that was really funny, too, so they all used to do it to him. So literally, in a matter of days, weeks, he became homeless because he couldn't hold a job because he couldn't do what he was trained to do. We've got a whole bunch of people that are like that today. But I'm also talking about our children. You know, the second leading cause of death in a 10-year-old is suicide. The second leading cause. You know, the children are killing themselves as young as 8 years old. 8 years old. And yet, every day, we hand a loaded gun to a child and say, well, this is in case you need to talk to mom or dad or, you know, something like that. And what goes on in here, you know that the things that go on in your society alone, at work and everything else, right? But when you walk away from work, it's done pretty much, right? Not for these kids. When they walk away from school, it follows them home. It's there at night when they go to bed. It's there in the morning when they wake up, and it's there all day long. Not only the comments about other people, but also the comments about them. So I took on the role of not just doing things for veterans, but for everybody. I've got 6 kids of my own. I lost one to COVID a few years ago. I have 18 grandchildren. I lost one of those 9 years ago. I have my next great-grandchild is going to be born next week. My 10th great-grandchild. I got a big family. I got a lot of kids. And every one of these veterans and every one of these people that I work with, they have children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. So talking about veterans and what they do that's not enough for me. It can't be. Because they have to go home and kiss their kids goodnight. And these kids are too afraid to talk to somebody to get help. They can't talk to mom and dad because mom and dad, they might either make a big deal out of it or, in many cases, just like mine, my mom and dad both worked. So they didn't have much time for us. A lot of these kids are in single-parent families. That's getting more and more all the time, especially in the black population, the LGBTQ population, and then we have the senior citizens that are alone, most of them now. So we can't just talk about, don't get me wrong, I love the proclamation, thank you so much. But it's not just enough, it's not enough to talk about just veterans today. It's everybody, it's everybody. That's why I so vehemently ask everybody I can to take one of these and put it on their car, to take one of these and put it in the window in their store, to take one of these, I've got large ones, I've got 8.5 by 11 ones, put them in your church vestibule, so that people see them, so that people can know what to do. If you lose all hope, it's a great song Elton John said, when all hope is gone, sad songs say so much, right? When you lose all hope, you don't know where to reach at. 988 can be that reach, can be that, because it's a counselor. It's a full-time counselor. There's 220 phone sites, contact sites in the country. If one gets clogged up, it switches automatically to another one, so the phone calls don't get unanswered. But that's just, I mentioned earlier, I said the government used to track suicide in active duty military, and we still have active duty military today that are dying. Just a couple of years ago, there were over 540 active duty military that took their own lives in that 1 year. So the government can't handle it. The government doesn't know what to do with it. So I get back around to this one thing, and it was brought about by the Clintons a long time ago. Hillary said we need to get back to being a village. We need to start looking at each other's brothers. We need to start looking at each other's neighbors and each other's kids. And you probably remember, some of you do, when people sat on the front porch and watched the kids in the neighborhood, right? Nobody does that anymore. You don't see anybody on the porch anymore. Most of them are working 2 jobs. A lot of them are only single-parent families. But we need to get back to watching each other and helping each other. Otherwise, this is just going to continue and continue at a terrifying rate. At a terrifying rate. I don't mean to scare all of you. I don't mean to do that. I just want to tell you what I believe and how important it is to try and get to that. Yes, I'm an ordained minister, so I reach out to God and I talk to many people about My anchor is in Jesus Christ. But that's not what I'm here to talk to you about today. It's how we can help each other, how we can help others, how we can help people in our community, how we can be there for our friends and our neighbors and our family. Because sometimes it's a grandparent, sometimes it's the aunt or uncle, sometimes it's the police officer, sometimes it's and maybe sometimes it's you that somebody would come to and ask for help. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much, sir. I really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
And just so you know, the city of Jackson has made a commitment to place those stickers on our vehicles. So once Jonathan gets back, he will be in touch with you.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
I can't wait.
Okay.
I can't wait because we're pushing right now to get it on all the state police cars. The American Legion is meeting this fall to discuss that resolution I sent to them about getting it on all the state police cars. And if we can do that, all the counties we think will fall in line. So that's what we're really pushing for right now. And if we can get Michigan, maybe we can get everybody. Thank you again.
Thank you. That brings us down to item 6, starting with item A, looking for a motion and support to to conduct a public hearing regarding the proposed street naming of Milwaukee to Carl Breeding Way.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same. And public hearing is open. Margie Thomas.
Hello, everyone. I'm Margie Thomas, and I live on South Milwaukee. And I'm totally opposed to this. I don't want the street name changed. When I was growing up as a child, my family lived at 1115 Adrian Street. And that was on the corner of Adrian and Stevens, where the Martin Luther King is now. That's where I lived. And in the 60s, or 59 or 60, they did urban renewal. I'm just going over this. It really don't matter. But then people start moving about looking for other houses. The whites start moving out to the suburbs. And but I don't see any residents of Milwaukee Street here tonight.
Right here. My house borders Milwaukee Street.
Okay. But anyway, I'm opposed to it. And you don't see any more because all the property is rental property. Most of the property, I said 90% of the property is rental property, or people that's trying to move back into the city, that's buying small homes and trying to make it. And I think this is just a way, as they used to say, throw the dog a bone, appeasement, try to satisfy us for what? I don't have anything against Carl Breeding, but he was an educator too. Name a school after him. Name Higbee Street after him. A street that would be noticed more than Milwaukee. Nobody comes up and down Milwaukee. Why name Milwaukee after him? I'm against it. I am totally against it. Name Durand, Bowen, some of them streets. Matter of fact, take a chunk out of Wildwood, name that after him. But not Milwaukee.
Michael Bicey.
I am Michael Bicey. I live on Cascade Woods Drive. I'm kind of in favor of the proposal to rename Milwaukee Carl Breeding Way. Now, Carl lived on Milwaukee, and he lived there for a long time. Carl has been a servant. He's been a public servant. He served as a public servant in the schools and with the various organizations and on the council with you. Now, it's kind of apropos because Carl was into community. He was into trying to bring the community together. It was just not I'm trying to do something for myself. When you look at Carl, many people looked at Carl. Carl left his house every day at the same time. And he walked down the stairs. He walked down Milwaukee Street. He walked down Milwaukee Street to Morrell. He walked up Morrell to Francis, which is now Martin Luther King. And he walked all the way to the post office, delivering mail to be sent out and bringing some communications back in. During his walk, he talked to a bunch of the people of the community because he was community oriented. He was community directed. He was a servant. He wanted to serve. Now, people might have thought that, Carl was just walking to get his 10,000 steps in. And he may have, but he was walking for other reasons. He was walking for individuals who needed a walk, a step, to be able to properly communicate with you. They had addressed issues. They had issues that needed to be addressed. He was walking for them. Sometimes people needed a person to walk for them. And Carl was selfless in that. When you actually saw him in a car, he looked out of place. And so Carl, one of the things that he never really asked for anything except for things for other people. So I think it might be apropos, if not just necessary, to rename Milwaukee Street after him.
John C. King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. John King, 203 3rd Street here in the city. I think when the residents of Jackson say fix the streets, they didn't mean that they want streets renamed after black people, even if they were, a teacher, as you said. And that's where a lot of this comes from. I criticized you when you did we need a street for us, just sort of the segregation and everything, and there's the politics of race involved with all this. I was looking at the agenda, and I see it's Jonathan Green, that's doing everything, and we need to do this, and I don't think Jonathan Green, with the troubles that the city has, I can't believe he took it upon himself to say, I think we need to name the street after Carl Breeding. It's nice that he was a teacher and a black teacher, as you said, but that doesn't cut it for naming a street after someone. He was with the NAACP a long time, and there's the angle here that I think at least 5 members here or at least 5 council members are also members of the NAACP, and so I'm sure there's that aspect. And unfortunately nowadays the NAACP is just another arm of the Democrat Party, and so there's sort of that politics there. So I know with Carl Breeding, watching council meetings in the past, and I think others had mentioned, he was always good for a no vote. Unfortunately he was sick. He missed a lot of before passing away, a lot of meetings, and so not to totally denigrate him, but there's someone like Dan Greer that was on the council overlapping with him and had been on the council more years. I don't think anyone's going to say, we need a street named after Dan Greer. So, that he was on the city council, that's not really a good reason to say that, we need to have a street named after him. And again, it's like we need a street named after us. Well, there was the original MLK. So as I suspect at that time, it probably wasn't the end of it. This might not be the last time, that the city wants to try to rename a street after someone that's viewed by, the council as, and I know there's been good things. The only time I've really come across him, I was walking down the street and, I said a pleasant hello to him, and, he kind of looked at me and just kept walking. So I don't know what he was thinking at the time. And if you're a big supporter on NAACP, I'm sure you think he's great and everything like that. A lot of you knew him, he had close, more personal relationships, like with Arlene Councilmember Robinson. But put the residents of the city first, not your own personal, politics or personal relationships. So, thank you.
Nick Thurston.
Hi, good evening. My name is Nicholas Thurston. I live here in Jackson, Michigan. I wanted to speak during the public hearing regarding the proposed street renaming of Milwaukee Street in the city of Jackson to Carl Breeding Way. I also oppose this, and it is my honor to say that Michael Bicey was a teacher of mine in JPS, and he put us through probably one of the most comprehensive and longest endeavors in discovering the black history of people in Michigan and USA who are descendants of African slaves, and taught me a lot about the world. There's probably not a day that goes by that I don't think about him. He's a great man. I do oppose renaming the Milwaukee Street to Carl Breeding Way for a number of reasons. Carl Breeding was very passionate about things he believed in, but overall he was fundamentally wrong. And the current state of the south side of Jackson, Michigan is evidence of that. The city of Jackson was not an area that was quite as divided or concentrated, racially concentrated, before the presence of organizations like the NAACP. Over time, we saw the city of Jackson become actually less diverse. We saw the population decrease by tens of thousands of people. And we saw crime skyrocket. We saw the economy crash. And we saw the black people in Jackson, the majority of black people in Jackson, Michigan, congregate to only one side of town and become more racist against people who did not look like them. This is our neighborhood, and you're not welcome here. It was the message that was sent to businesses that were owned by white people and neighbors who did not match the darker skin color. Over time, we would see the school districts in that, or the schools in the Jackson area, in the south side, fail and shut down, slowly being defunded. We would see a lot of the minority students being migrated into alternative schools that were eventually shut down and defunded. And even to quote your own more recent City of Jackson contractor, Residents in Action, part of their proposal for wanting to purchase the T.E. Wilson School building and the grants that were written was that they're trying to save the black neighborhood or to address issues, systemic issues that disproportionately affect people who are black Americans that are descendants of African slaves. This is an area that was thriving, an area that was quite diverse. It was actually one of the richest neighborhoods in town. Many of those houses are still mansions, but they've been split up into smaller apartments through attempts to create affordable housing projects. We see that the school system in Jackson, Michigan, JPS Schools, is now on probation by the state of Michigan because they are failing. One of the worst school districts in the country. Although this, I think, one of the biggest contributing factors to all this stuff is identity politics that promotes this sort of anti-American and something that more closely resembles a Confederate policy or practice or philosophy than anything that is native and natural to American people. Carl Breeding was a person who was very passionate about his own race and much preferred, like we see many of the identity activists, they prefer themselves to everybody else. It's me first, everybody else second. And even when they're wrong, they refuse to acknowledge the fact that they are fundamentally wrong. Even when the results are a disaster, even when their neighborhoods are suffering, their own people are suffering, just double down. And instead of acknowledging that they're wrong and changing things or just stopping what they're doing, we don't see any of that. We don't see anybody accepting responsibility for the things that are taking place. Your contractors, Residents in Action, who still have not purchased the building in T. Wilson, I'm sure they would support proposals like this one because they are racialized and they are ways to sort of glorify the NAACP that has ultimately failed American people in nearly every single American city that we look at. It's not a way to promote diversity. We see that most of the black neighborhoods in the USA are almost the same. A lot of them are struggling. The schools in those areas are failing, shutting down, being defunded. Businesses are leaving. Crime is abnormally high. The African American or black children, if that's what you want to call it, are being targeted by gangs constantly for recruitment in areas where there is not a good economy, not a lot of jobs, and people who don't see a lot of hope. And they're told to trust people based on the color of their skin rather than the content of the character. And this fundamentally goes against the things that the American civil rights laws were passed for, and we see the consequences. We deal with abnormally high crime in Jackson, Michigan, one of the highest crime rates in the country, and we deal with a 50% decline in the city of Jackson population. Your contractors complained that many of the businesses are gone, many of the healthcare companies are gone. There's little to no diversity in that side of town, and all these things are the result of Carl Breeding's misguided policies, his wrong beliefs, his false beliefs about what would solve problems for people who looked like him. And I think it would be a slap in the face to the people who have suffered through years and years of the sort of isolation and segregation away from mainstream normal American society. And it's not only wrong to do that, but to change, for the government to change people's addresses against their will, I think is also unfair. It will cause a lot of these people to spend more money to change, update their licenses, IDs, registration, insurance information. It costs a lot of companies money and create more work and put more work on people's desks than I think is necessary. The street name is fine. It's not bothering anybody. There's no negative connotations to it. And I think that renaming it as the Carl Breeding Way would be offensive, not only to the people that have lived here and have struggled through those things, but also the people that are here and now alive and are now suffering under the bad policies that you, Mr. Daniel Mahoney, have promoted here. You should not be using your position as mayor to rename city streets after your family members. Your own policies are negatively impacting the black people who live in Jackson, Michigan. They're harming our schools, they're harming businesses, they're harming our neighborhoods, neighborhoods that have mostly been recovering, or at least attempting to recover, are starting to backslide. And a lot of people like myself, I've moved back to Jackson, Michigan after leaving for many years, and saw news articles that described as sort of a new opportunity zone and all these things that are not here when I have arrived. Things I read in the news do not match reality, and we don't have a mayor that takes the crime, the fraud, waste, and abuse of nonprofits, or the fraud, waste, and abuse of our public resources seriously. So thank you for your time.
I believe that concludes all of our written requests to speak.
No, I handed mine in first. I was the first one here. Darren Hester.
Come on up, Mr. Hester. Sorry, we had you on the blue paper instead of the yellow one. Yes, sir.
I'm Theron Hester. I live at 1027 Martin. My back of my property borders Milwaukee, since I bought a back lot back there. I'm just going to give you guys a little history about myself and Milwaukee Street. 8 of my school years I spent living on Milwaukee Street. We've owned and lived and raised 2 children on Martin Street. Our backyard now borders Milwaukee Street. We've been there over 40 years. My grandparents owned a home on Milwaukee Street. My father owned a home on Milwaukee Street. I know by changing this name, we're gonna lose some historical history, but I'm gonna go back, and I'm a lot older than a lot of you guys. But Milwaukee was a lively street at one time. We used to call it the corner, Biddle and Milwaukee. We had Leaks Lounge down there, Brownie's Pool Hall, Grimes Chicken Takeout, the Mark III Nightclub, B&M Playground. I'm going to hate to see all this leave. You know, I've hated to see all the businesses leave. I lived in that area pretty much my whole life. But I also know Mr. Breeding. Good man, done a lot for this community. I worked 10 years, we volunteered 10 years on the Southside Reunion Committee, trying to build up things for the South Side of Jackson. His house is kitty corner to my house, and he was there many years. And like Mr. Bicey said, he walked through the neighborhood, and he was a proud member of that neighborhood. And if anybody's deserving to have a street named after them, it's Mr. Carl Breeding. Good man, done a lot for the community. You know, I don't know how people can come up here, they don't even look like they're 40 years old, and can say the things that they say about a person that they don't even know. But Mr. Breeding was a great person, and I think it would be a deserving honor for him if the street was named Carl Breeding Way. Thank you.
Let me double check one more time. Council, did you guys want to make any comments during this time? Sir, come on up. If you would do me a favor, after you speak, please fill out one of these forms and then just hand it to anybody on the dais, please. Yes, sir.
I'm over 40, too. Now, I came from Chicago.
Just give us your name, please.
My name is Joseph Neal Long, live 1100 South Milwaukee. And I came from Chicago up here when I was young.
If you just get closer to the mic, that's fine.
I came from Chicago up here when I was young, lived with my cousins, the Kellys. I think most of y'all know the Kellys. I'm the good side of the Kellys, don't worry about that. But the gentleman you're talking about, like I said, I really don't know him. I don't know if he's white or black. Is he white or black? Can anybody tell me that? What?
He's black.
He black? Okay. Now I'm on point. But I'm only here today because Matt told me about, she didn't like the last part of that name, Way. She said it could be anything but Way. And she also stressed to me that even though the man, he was a good man, she told me, because when the clubs was popping back then, yeah, I was young, but I matter of fact, to get in a couple times, don't worry about that. But it's a nice place, Milwaukee Street. It has its ups and downs, and all streets and neighborhoods has its ups and downs. But I've been listening to everything that everybody said here today. You got your pros, you got your cons, and basically, I would say it's almost a toss-up. But like I said, Milwaukee Street been Milwaukee Street since I've been here, and and like you said, I don't have to change my name or my address and all this other stuff, banking account, because my bank might not like me anymore. But it's a good honor to give somebody a name, but it's a lot of other streets you can name. I mean, plenty of longer streets out there than Milwaukee Street. It is not a very long street. And I just want to say that. I'm not going to keep it long. Like I said, I didn't know the man. Sound like a great fella. But not on my street. But besides that, y'all have a nice day, and thank you.
If you could fill out one of those forms for me, please, that would be great. Council, any comments from you guys? So I'll make a comment just to kind of address some of the concerns that some of the citizens who actually live on the street have. This was not something that was brought about by staff. This was something that was and has been asked of the family of Carl Breeding for a long time since his passing. They said, hey, it would be great if the city did something to honor Carl Breeding and the work that he did for this community. I mean, I've shared my own story several times on my interactions with Carl Breeding, and I won't bother you guys with that story, but what I will say is this. The history that was spoke about is correct. Some history will be lost. But it's people doing the work that create the history in this community. And I think it would be a shame for another 40-year fight to happen to rename a street, something as simple as renaming a street to honor someone for the work that they did in this community, the selfless work that they did. I mean, you've heard the accounts. I don't know if you've read the resolution. The resolution is attached in the agenda. To see the work that he put in this community, selflessly, not only a teacher, serving as a county, our city official, an elected official for Ward 1 for 12 years, ran for mayor before, helped countless people, known not just here in Jackson, but all across the entire state of Michigan. He served as the state president of the NAACP. He was on the national board of directors, and that may not mean a whole lot to some individuals, but those who know the work and the fight that went on know that he put the work in, not just for Jackson, but for the entire state of Michigan. I think this small gesture is the least that we can do in this moment to honor his memory and keep his memory alive for community members to come down the line. There's a lot of people who, just like this gentleman just mentioned, may not even know who Carl Breeding is or the work that he did in this community, and his name will go lost if we do nothing. And for some people, that's absolutely fine. In fact, I'm willing to go out on a limb and say that I think some people would be just fine and probably would want his name to die, his memory to die, the work that he did in this community to die. I'm not willing to let that happen. And for those who are making the accusation that I'm pushing for this because he was a family member, if that's the case, I would be looking to rename Morris Street Sylvester Mahoney, because that's my heritage. That's my family. That's who I would want a street renamed after. This is because I know the work that it takes, the sacrifice that it takes of an individual's family to sit in these seats, unpaid, underpaid, underappreciated, and selflessly. So yeah, I'm willing to fight for it. He wasn't married to my aunt, but he had a child with my aunt. Doesn't make us family. I called him Uncle Carl out of respect. He was never my teacher. Called him Uncle Carl out of respect because I know the work that he put in for this community. Some people may not, but I guarantee you, if you Google his name, and he wasn't even alive in the days where Google was popping like it is right now, it will tell the story of the work that he did, all the work that he did in this community. He deserves to be honored, and I'm willing to push for it. We do got one more that just got turned in. Mr. Alan Wade.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, City Council members. Yes, my name is Alan Wade. I'm a lifelong resident of Jackson, Michigan, and my family, we grew up on Martin Street, which is right around the corner, a stone's throw from Mr. Breeding's house. And I've been knowing Mr. Breeding all my life, and I'd just like to say that Mr. Breeding, he was a fighter for justice. He was a fighter. Now, he was affiliated with the NAACP for years, but he stood up for what was right, not if you were just black, even if you were white, Mexican, it doesn't matter. He stood up for right. And he had the respect of his community. He was civic-minded. He loved Jackson, Michigan, and he dedicated many, many hours. He was a school teacher. He changed and influenced lives for generations. We're still feeling the effects of the work that Mr. Breeding put in this community. So I believe that if anyone is qualified, anyone who loved Jackson, anyone who dedicated their lives long after many of us are going to sleep, it would be Mr. Carl Breeding. So he certainly had a positive impact on me and my family, and he had the respect of the city, and he had the love of the city. Thank you.
Any additional comments, council?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Just really briefly, I guess the way I look at this, and I don't want to oversimplify it, but I think you take it from two angles. And I'm not an etymologist by any means, but I don't think Milwaukee has any local Jackson history tied to it in any way. Whereas Carl Breeding Way would. That's one angle. The other, of course, is this man deserving of having a street named after him, and I don't think anybody argues with that. Knowing that, and of the four people who have spoken here tonight, 3 are in favor that live on the street and 1 is against, and 30 or 40 didn't bother coming, I'll be voting in favor of this.
Council Member Robinson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Breeding, and I gave a synopsis of him last meeting. I do feel he is deserving of this. It's a small stretch. I do know that the family had asked this or made this request several years ago. And I do want to point out to those who spoke of his tenure, Dan Greer did not serve any longer than Carl. I believe they both had a 12-year tenure. So, and that's neither here nor there, but I grew up with the family. I certainly worked alongside of Mr. Breeding and know that his heart was Jackson. There's so many memories that go back several years. NAACP was one of the organizations that he belonged to and he led. He served from the local level all the way up to the national level. So I do feel that this would be deserving and would give us a piece of history that will follow, things that young people will probably be able to Google now. As Daniel says, it's out there on Google. I've never Googled him, but I have worked with Mr. Breeding for many, many years of my years of serving in the community, and that's well over 35. But NAACP was one, but it's not the total reason behind the name change. He did walk. He saw him walking more than driving. And he did believe in supporting his people and looking out for what we need as a people, not as a people of color only, but we as people. So I am in support. I do know there is some that do not, but I do think that Mr. Breeding is deserving of this request from family, and the mayor and myself have worked closely with this because we have both been a part of the NAACP, but the NAACP has been around a long time. So with that, I'll just close. I gave the story, and the resolution gives some information, but Mr. Breeding was a warrior for the city of Jackson, not just the NAACP. Thank you.
Council, any other comments?
Yes, I wasn't born and raised here, so I didn't know Mr. Breeding that well, not well at all. When I started coming to council meetings, I watched how he presented himself at council. I saw how he stood ground on certain things that he was really wanted to push and things he was against. And he fought hard for the people. So I reading his biography, just what was written up is amazing. All the work he's done, everything he's did. So I just like to say that doing this work behind the scenes, it's tireless work that you do for the people. When you're really working for the people, you're working for people, Latinx community, working for people with disabilities, just working for the people is really hard work. And I'm nowhere on the level that Mr. Breeding was, but I just appreciate everything that he done, everything that he did. So I'm just amazed of all the things he done, and I just appreciate everything he's done. Just the work is amazing. So, I support this. I have I cannot support it, but I think he worked hard for everybody, every human being, no matter what color, what race, gender, whatever. I think he did his thing. He did everything he had to do. So I support this, and I thank God for a man like him being part of this, being able to sit on this council, try to follow what he's done, follow those footprints. So thank you, appreciate you. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Looks like we have one more comment. I do want to add one thing also, just as an additional thought. When former Mayor Dobies and I sat down and we discussed finalizing a fight that Carl Breeding started, which was to rename Francis Street after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., one of the most important things to me in that conversation that we had was this cannot be or become the run-of-the-mill MLK. I don't want this to just be a renaming and just renaming sake. And it was a promise made. I can remember it like yesterday. It was myself, Derek Dobies, and Patrick Birch walking down MLK Street, Francis at the time. And during that conversation that we had about renaming the street and the process, we talked about all the things that need to be done to make sure that that doesn't happen. If you know Patrick Birch, you know he was landscaping everything right then. Well, we're going to do this, and I think we should do this and do that. But it came with a promise that this was going to be the end of a chapter, and the beginning of another chapter, not the end of a book of 49 years. And it's been an honor to sit here to make sure that that promise is held true. So in this moment, what I'm doing is I'm going to make another promise that the renaming of this street will give the community a new start and a promise of investment into not just the main street, the main thoroughfares, but also a promise to rebuild in the communities themselves, which is what we have been working to do. And I think that this community deserves it, and I think that the time is now to make it happen. And I also just want to call up Pastor Hines to give his comments as well.
Thank you, Mayor, and to the council. I came to the meeting today just to observe. And I said to myself, man, I'm troubled by people. I said, we have to pray and love each other. And then I thought about, say something. And I said, be quiet. But I was blessed by Will. He made more sense to me than any of the other comments. They were personal attacks. They was politically driven. They got off order about the street. And I'm like, man, we're doing the best for the people. How do we do the best for the people? Common sense. Will says, Milwaukee. What does it mean? 20 years from today, somebody can make another motion and call it from Carl Breeding to James Hines. It's what people do. Are we really going to fall out? Shouldn't people be able to look up in their kids and says, that man fought for us? I drive in Jackson, I see streets named Hirsch, Glick, because those people contribute to this community. I pastored Carl Breeding. He was one of my hardest members to pastor. Yes, he was. But I'll never forget, I asked him about politics. The Republican Party was recruiting me. And I asked Carl Breeding, should I be a Republican? I'm born a Democrat, but I kind of like their views. And this is what he said to me. We need good people on both sides. And both sides have good people. I never forgot that. That man's stock went real high. He didn't tell me stick and be a Democrat. He told me both sides have good people. Will, I want to thank you. Your comments gave me strength to say, don't be quiet. I thought about the Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King. Evil will only prevail if good people be quiet. Children need to know, right or wrong, that somebody was fighting. And I'm bothered by people who put down an organization that fought for people to be classified as citizens. We want to be a first-class country with second-class citizens. Now, we might disagree, but we still need to love each other. We can tone it down. We're not talking about history. We're talking about a man. I still say we don't do enough to recognize our people. And when I say people, I'm not talking about black people. I'm talking about Jackson. I'm from a little old town called Benton Harbor, and now I'm starting to be a Jackson Viking. Ooh, that don't even sound good right there.
I'm a Buckeye, I feel you.
Okay. Man. I just say this. When we have decided you to be our leaders, we're going to live with your choices. That's why the vote is so important. This is not an elementary classroom. You don't get your way and you pout. You support leadership. And when we get a chance to get you out, we'll get you out. But until now, we with you. And that's the kind of man Carl Breeding was. He would come to church and send me a memo. Sermon 27 minutes. I would tell him I was shooting for 30. That's the way we related. I'm here for what's right, not because he was a great man in my life. He was a great person for this culture. Just, you done dropped the ball many times. There should be a Dungy road. I'm like, wow. This city have a lot of great people. Don't keep fumbling the ball. And you all live, so one day our grandchildren will say, Will Forgrave, the man that made the most sense. God bless you.
There's no other comments. I'll be looking for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And that will conclude that public hearing. I'm sorry, sir. If you want to make, if you want to make a public comment, you can fill out a form to the side, please. That would bring us down to item B, looking for a motion and support to conduct a public hearing to receive citizens' comment for the city's CDBG and home performance.
Second.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same. Public hearing is now open. Nick Thurston.
Good evening. My name is Nicholas Thurston. I live here in Jackson, Michigan. And I wanted to speak during the public hearing for 6B, item 6B, public hearing to conduct citizen comments for the city's CDBG and home art performance. So, like many people that live here in Jackson, we have significant concerns about fraud, waste, and abuse of public resources that have been delivered to local nonprofit organizations. A lot of these funds, they can have things to do with like neighborhood revitalization or homelessness outreach supports, things like that. And we do not see the work being done in ways that are appropriate. We've seen an increase in racial discrimination and racial prejudices within local nonprofit organizations during your administration. We see an increase in hostility against people who are ethnically white, I guess if that's what you want to call it. And it bothers me to see in my neighborhood so many people in such a severe level of need, and the people who need the help the most being put on the back burner because of a historical, a negative history of the African chattel slavery trade that American settlers did participate in. But Michigan was never a slave state. Michigan, it was the people of Jackson, Michigan, to be specific, who fought against the secession of the South and contributed the most to the abolition of slavery. And, I mean, it's bizarre, some of the stuff that people are coming up with now to justify why they would break state and federal laws that are directly attached to the funds that they're receiving, and with virtually no oversight from people here at City Hall. Their customers consistently face discrimination. I don't think that the concerns are being taken seriously, unfortunately. People have complained about these things for years here, and it seems to have gotten progressively worse for those years, even if people complain about it. Personally, I think the city of Jackson should accept $0 of CDBG grant funds and home investment partnership funds for the next year to see if there would be a difference in the behavior of those organizations, or if they would take seriously reprimands or discipline from local city hall that would help them steer their programs in the right direction. There are state and federal laws, and even Jackson, Michigan has a non-discrimination ordinance that's supposed to provide equal protections to all people, and we don't see those protections being enforced or extended to all people. And instead, we see racial identity activists who believe that all the funds should go to black people, or only women, or only people who are LGBT. And I think it's a disgrace to our city. I think that our people deserve better, and especially the people that are needy. The people that are eligible for the resources are not getting them, and businesses that are not eligible for those resources are. And we don't see the benefit extending to the average person in the city of Jackson. And that's kind of how I look at a lot of things. Does the average person benefit from the application of the City of Jackson resources, the use policy decisions here at City Hall, things that are happening, whether it's school board decisions, the libraries, the public parks, public housing, publicly funded resources? Does the average person benefit? And I've not seen many examples in the City of Jackson where the average person of our city benefited, the average person in our county benefited, or the average person in our state or country would be likely to benefit from the policy decisions that were made in this room. So that's my my citizen comment. Thank you.
Council, any comments or questions during this public hearing? Seeing or hearing none, we'll be looking for a motion and support to close the public hearing. It's been moved and supported. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed the same. Public hearing is now closed. Now we are looking for a motion and support to conduct a public hearing to receive citizen comment for the city's substantial amendment 1 to the 2024-2025 annual action plan for the reallocation of home investment partnership program funds.
So moved.
Support.
It's moved and supported. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed the same. Public hearing is now open. Mr. Nick Thurston.
Hi, my name is Nicholas Thurston. I live here in Jackson, Michigan. I wanted to speak during the public hearing for agenda item 6C. What exactly is the substantial amendment number 1 to the 2024-2025 annual action plan? Could you please describe it? Any council members or mayor or a city attorney or a city manager, could somebody please describe the amendments?
Do you want to give a light overview?
What's that?
Do you want to give a light overview?
I do not. Mr. City Attorney?
Corey?
Come on down, Corey. You'll have to step to the side for Corey to be able to speak.
Good evening, Council. And Mr. Thurston, thanks for the question. So the substantial amendment number 1 is for the annual action plan, 24-25. It's a reallocation of home funds to be distributed per the proposal to our local Habitat for Humanity chapter for the construction of 1 new home to offset funding for a MISH grant received from the Michigan State Housing Development Authority. The reason why the substantial amendment is here is because anytime that we want to change spending by more than 15% of what was originally allocated in an action plan, we have to go before council do a public hearing, do a substantial amendment, have a 30-day public comment period, and then take that to a vote by council, and then submit that to the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development. So that's why we're here. These funds would, again, be reallocated from the original action plan, which was quite broad in its disposal of home funds in this fiscal year, to, I think if the action plan serves me correctly, to simply set that aside for a project to be determined in the future. This would be the future project that had been determined by staff and the Community Development Department through collaboration with Sheila Everts and our local Habitat chapters to support the work that they're doing. Does that answer your question, Mr. Thurston? Thank you.
So that's what I thought. Thank you for answering the question. I oppose this decision. I do not believe the City of Jackson should continue to fund the Habitat for Humanity. Many of their projects, I think it's somewhere, it depends on which county you look at, I guess, but nearly half, from what I found, is pretty consistent, end in foreclosures or bankruptcy of the families. This is not a healthy program. It doesn't do what it says it's going to do. And again, I have to consider, does the average customer benefit? And I don't think that they benefit from Habitat for Humanity. I don't believe they should be funded by the City of Jackson, and they previously have falsely misrepresented themselves as not having any funding in the past. When I think it was about, they were requesting $1.9 million to administer the City of Jackson's 100 Homes project. There's a hearing about that, which council members voted no to send them more money. So that's what I have to say about that. Thank you.
Sheila Everts.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, my name is Sheila Everts, and I'm the executive director. Excuse me?
I'm sorry. Everts.
Everts, that's okay. It's okay. I'm good. I am here to say thank you, first of all, because the money that was allocated to us, I think it was probably 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, we were able to build 4 new homes behind YMCA, high energy efficient, zero net, all electric homes, and the families that are in those homes have affordable payments. And affordable means 30% of their gross income. Didn't matter how much it cost us to build those homes. And we at Habitat was very good stewards of this funds that was provided to us to build these 4 houses. And because we were so good at our budgeting, we did have some extra money left over. And the last home sold in December of last year. And so I went to Corey because our mission is to build affordable, safe homes in our community. I said, Corey, I didn't spend all the money. Can we please try to figure out how I can build another home? And so we have worked for many, many months. And so I want to thank you guys, first of all, for even considering this to be able to build another home. And this home's going to be on Trail Street. And it is going to match a grant that we got with MSHDA to build a house right next door on Cooper. And we're hoping to break ground in mid-October. And I did hear that, give you some facts. These homes will be our 67th and 68th home that we will build. Our foreclosure rate over the last 35 years has been 2. Our homeowners do stay in the homes and typically don't sell them. They're very happy about being homeowners and staying in their communities. We've had a few sell because people have personal reasons. So they sell, they move up, they move out, or maybe divorce or death. So I just want to make sure that you guys understand that we don't stop when we build the house and the homeowner gets there. If they have issues or they have financial issues or they have housing issues, we have a wraparound service where they can come in and they can still talk to us and we can try to help them with resources that we have in our community. So I support the money coming to us because I have plans to build in 2 weeks, hopefully. I think that's it. Thank you.
Council, any comments? Seeing or hearing none, we'll be looking for a motion to support to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Support.
It's moved and supported. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed the same. Public hearing is now closed. It brings us down to item D. Looking for a motion and support to conduct a public hearing to receive citizen comments on the city's proposed substantial amendment number 7 to the 2019-2020 annual action plan for the reallocation of community development block grant funds.
So moved.
It's been moved and supported. Any comments on the motion? Seen or hear none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed the same. Public hearing is now open. Mr. Nick Thurston.
Good evening. My name is Nicholas Thurston. I live here in Jackson, Michigan. I wanted to speak during the public hearing for agenda item 6D. Could someone on council, the mayor or city attorney, city manager, or other city staff please describe the substantial amendment number 7 to the 2019-2020 annual action plan?
What? You ain't gonna explain it? No, I'm just playing. Corey, come on up.
Yep. Put me on the spot.
Listen, I appreciate the chance to talk about this stuff. This is great. We do so much of this work, and sometimes it operates in a bubble downstairs, and so it's great when the community wants to know and wants to dig deeper. So we always appreciate the chance to share. So when COVID started, many communities received special funding. These are called CDBG CV funds. We're an entitlement community. We're entering our 50th year of entitlement funding through HUD. So we received CV funds, COVID relief funds, as part of our CDBG program to the tune of just under $1 million. Many of those funds went to work that happened at the Booth Center, including HVAC work, the Loomis Park East Trail, some admin funds. Right now we've got a surplus of about $116,000 and change. We might have a little bit more than that, but it's right around $116,000. We've got a few years left to spend those. In the grant world, $116,000 isn't a lot, though it certainly isn't nothing either. And so this is an amazing chance for us to continue the work that was started over at Loomis Park. This has been a good collaborative effort with community development and our city parks and rec department to recognize what the city master plan for parks has been, which has really been centered around an expansion of the trail system, especially in the Loomis Park area. So the chance to do some sidewalk work, some trail work, some bench work where people can sit, take a rest, enjoy the sledding hill. We're in this proposal, there's I know the map is not in front of you, and I apologize for that, but some benches that would be at bus stops along Michigan Avenue. Many of the bench pads would have handicap accessible ramps to get to them with wider access points. So it's an interesting and really a collaborative opportunity to expand and support the master plan for parks. And to use the rest of these funds in a really wise way to continue the projects that were started. Again, from a procedural standpoint, anytime that we're going to move around funds, and I misspoke, I appreciate the chance to correct myself. I said that we had to do a substantial amendment if it was 15% or more. It's actually 20% of more of change of funds, so I apologize for the misstep in my last statement there. It's actually 20%. So we're required by law to do the public hearing, the 30-day public comment notice. We had to publish this in 5 different places throughout the community, do a publication in the newspaper, and then, of course, also hold this public hearing and put a draft before council at their last meeting and a final version at this meeting. And all of these are procedural steps that are not only required by HUD and are supported by our citizen comment plan here at the city, but they're also just the right thing to do. They're the right thing to do when you're going to move funds around. This isn't our money. This isn't the staff's money. Sorry, council, it's not even your money, really. It's the people's money. It's the people's money that we're entrusted to do the right thing with, to do the best work that we can with. And so we not only need to follow the procedures, we want to follow them to make sure that we're doing them correctly and that we're involving the city and our citizens and making sure that they agree with the work that we're choosing to do. Does that answer your question, Mr. Thurston? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Corey. That's exactly what I was going to say. I knew it was. I knew it.
Okay. Thank you. No further comments.
Council, any additional comments, questions, concerns? Seeing or hearing none, looking for a motion and support to close the public hearing. It's been moved and supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same. And that concludes all of our public hearings for the day. Brings us down to item number 7, citizens' comments. We'll start by reading the rules for speaking before the city council. Number 1, each speaker will state their name and address prior to addressing council. Number 2, each speaker is limited to up to 3 minutes during the citizens' comment portion of the meeting. Council members will not debate or answer questions at this time. Number 3, each speaker should be polite and courteous to the council and members of the public in attendance, while any speaker is free to express his or her opinion on any subject. No speaker may direct personal attacks at any member of the staff or council unrelated to the manner in which they perform their duties, use obscene language while addressing the city council, or engage in disruptive or disorderly behavior during a council meeting. Number 4, should any speaker cause a breach of the peace through their conduct, the mayor may declare the speaker out of order. Number 5, if a speaker is declared out of order by the mayor and refuses to cease and desist from disruptive or disorderly conduct, the mayor may order the person removed from the meeting. Each speaker may speak once under public comment and may not yield their time to others. Mr. Nick Thurston.
Hi, my name is Nicholas Thurston. I live here in Jackson, Michigan, and I wanted to talk about local issues during agenda item 7, citizen comments. So still, there's been no updates to the people about whether or not RA is going to purchase the T.A. Wilson building for $150,000 that this council voted on, and that a building they demanded so strongly. Now it seems like they don't want it. They're getting a lease deal for $1 per month, which is a lot different. And there's been significant damage to the property. I'm not sure how much it would cost to repair the retaining wall and the fence, but that's probably could have been avoided if the city had turned them down like they should have, because they were not qualified for the contracts or the lease. So I'm just going to quote some of the stuff that they had written during their contract and published at the City of Jackson. They described the south side of Jackson, Ward 1, the area that Carl Breeden had the most influence over, as predominantly black. Average annual income is less than $9,000. There's no grocery store, no bank or credit union, no schools, no public or private schools, no health clinics or offices, no pharmacy, and few businesses. They also stated that Jackson's in the top 100 most dangerous cities in the USA, and they say that the city in our state that has been hit the hardest by extreme poverty is Jackson, Michigan. They describe some other quotes or other statistics. About 63% of Jackson's black children live in poverty. I don't really think it's appropriate to measure poverty in children because they can't really work yet. It seems kind of a bizarre political trend lately, but it's seems more popular. But someone just dropped this off. It says, Jackson Mayor Daniel Mahoney's Many Hands Community Services nonprofit had apparent tax law violations and clear failure to file required forms, and is under investigation of the IRS for not disclosing at least $190,000 in gross receipts from 2020 to 2022. I think most of these donations are made by local banks and hospital, Allegiance, or Henry Ford Allegiance, and True Community Bank, maybe a couple other banks too. But is this true? That your company has been dissolved by the state of Michigan government? They revoked your license?
Thank you, Mr. Thurston.
Thank you.
Jennifer Bittinger.
Good evening, Council. I'm Jennifer Bittinger from Jackson. Oh, what happened? Here we go. Wanted to let you know that I'm still all praying for all of you and for our city and for our country. I was encouraged by a lot of the comments tonight. I'm also praying that our people will turn back to the Lord and put Him first and want to obey and please Him. There are crucial times ahead, and we have a choice in November to vote whether to continue down the path of current government agendas to destroy our personal and religious freedoms, not to mention our economy. Will you be ignorant to the fact that Kamala Harris has the same agenda as Biden? Do you want the continued corruption and fruit of the last 4 years? All the millions of money spent to deceive the people in commercials right now that she has new ideas and cares for the average person. Please, please, I beg you, don't be deceived. Seek truth. But in a recent commercial, Harris did speak truth about one thing. They do have very differing agendas. And our democracy is at stake, as she says. But we, the people, against corruption, are the democracy that needs to stand up. The current Democratic Party is controlled by the global-minded, super rich tyrants, whether you want to believe it or not. Most people are rejecting it. If we don't stop these globalists from taking over our country by controlling the Democratic Party, not to mention the media, and then choosing only candidates that will go along with their agenda, we will not be able to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Our children, our grandchildren are looking to us to preserve our freedoms. I speak for many who want a government who will not control our lives and our freedoms. Donald Trump is one who is willing to stand in their way. And there are others. And I'm sickened by the commercials that lie about politicians wanting to let women die over aborting their babies. It's about right to life, people, not just the mothers that sadly need to choose their own life over their babies, but for all, including babies being murdered by those who want a right to death. All those that fear God or have moral character should be standing against the wickedness behind those that want a right to death for any reason. I believe that people still want to seek righteousness in our lives, our homes, and in our government. We want our representatives to represent us too, and not to cave in to the corrupt progression of godlessness and government tyranny. We will all stand in judgment one day
Jennifer.
for every word and every deed. God bless you with seeking truth.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, may we take a recess, 5-minute recess, please?
Is it okay if we just finish with public comment first? That
Yeah.
was definitely my plan.
Thank you.
Yes. John C. King. Only got a few more. I'm sorry. Just want to at least get through public comment.
John King, 203 3rd Street here in the city. So if Councilmember Robinson would Google Dan Greer, City of Jackson, she'll find an article done by our woke 6th Ward Council member where it mentions it was 2013 he was running unopposed, which took him to 2017. It said he started first elected in 1997, so he clearly was on the council more years than Carl Breeding. Another falsehood, Pastor James Hines mentioned that, that the NAACP, fought for, insinuating blacks could become citizens. After the Civil War and stuff, several decades went by where, like former black slaves were citizens of the United States before the NAACP was first started. So that's a falsehood. Pastor Hines, this past MLK Day, he had the person, I call him Pastor Antichrist, he's white, and he mentioned it's in his DNA that he's a white supremacist, meaning, white people are just white supremacists naturally, and several of you were here, and Pastor Hines, yeah, way to go, kind of I'm not, in no way do I want to say I'm holier than thou or anything like that, but Pastor Hines is a pastor, has some serious issues. His comments and going to Will Forgrave, it's the politics of race, and you're going to pass it anyhow. I mean, it's on the agenda, so there's that. I'm not going to waste any more breath on that. Connor Wood kind of mentioned visitors, for the library. He should use taxpayers, the people that pay. So he mentioned, like, most abuse is in homes, and he tried to push, like, what Tim Walz that, teachers and stuff, students, if they want to talk about their sex lives and stuff, this is Tim Walz, that's fine, students should be, it's their parents that should be the ones in charge. They're not the government or, teachers and stuff like that. The debate, they fact-checked President Trump with a bunch of lies. The Governor Ralph Northam deal where he did say about, after a child's born, there were 911 calls about Haitians eating animals. So, and
thank you, Mr. King.
Thank you.
Peter Bormuth.
Peter Bormuth, West Pearl Street. It's an interesting question of how a religion should be judged. And it is my belief that a religion should be judged by the actions of the adherents of that religion. And I believe in this case, it might be the only thing that I agree with your Jesus Christ. But in Matthew, he said, "But a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit." So I think he agrees with me. The tree is his religion, and what is the fruit of it? The deeds of his adherents. So what is the fruit of Christianity? First, you destroyed ancient paganism, its temples, its science, its libraries. This was done by violence and persecution. The Roman Emperor Jovian delivered an imperial edict on September 11th, 364, ordered the death penalty for all pagans who continued to worship their ancestral gods. He also ordered the destruction of libraries. In 782, Charlemagne gave the defeated Saxons a choice: conversion to Christianity by baptism in the morning or beheading. The 4,500 captives, among them one of my ancestors, all chose beheading. In Kiev, Prince Valdemar had the entire population of the city march to the river and forcibly baptized on pain of death. That was Russia back then. In Norway, King Ulf Tryggvason gathered all the wizards and priests of Woden and Thor in a longhouse for a great feast, then barred the door, burnt the building to the ground. That's how your Christian religion spread. Your Jesus Christ was responsible for the Great Dying, the genocide against the Native Americans, which eliminated nearly 55 million people, or 90% of the indigenous, following the Christian conquest of the Americas between 1500 and 1600. Many of them, the majority, died of disease, of course, European diseases that they didn't have. Your Jesus Christ invented color racism. It didn't exist in the ancient world. Pope Nicholas V issued the bull Dum Diversus in 1452 and gave the Portuguese the right to attack the Moors, pagans, and other enemies of Christ wherever they may be found. They were found in Africa, and that started the Atlantic slave trade. Maybe you people should know some history before you worship this evil scum, Jesus Christ.
Dr. Victoria.
Good evening, Council. Like you all, I think I'm going to have to get therapy for PTSD from the City Council meeting. First and foremost, I just want to say that I I'm sad that Mr. Bull actually had to leave, but I want to acknowledge that I'm not only speaking to you as the executive director of the Welcome Home Organization, but a Department of Defense employee for 20 years. I managed an operations cell in Afghanistan, Iraq, Kuwait, and Syria for 12 of my years. So when veterans, I actually had a major that went home one day. He had a desk next to me and went home and he committed suicide. So I am very connected to that. So I appreciate the work that Mr. Bull is doing in this community greatly. Second, I would like to just thank the city of Jackson for supporting Habitat for Humanity for their groundbreaking last week on their first veteran house build on Bates Street. One of our board members, her name was Reverend Dr. Kimberly Mitchell, was here a year ago. So excuse me if I get emotional. She's one of my best friends. She actually deployed for me to Afghanistan for 18 months. But she was here a year ago for the groundbreaking or the ribbon cutting. And she was extremely proud of the work that Habitat for Humanity is doing here in Jackson for veterans and their families, and the fact that the Welcome Home organization had the support of Habitat for Humanity. So I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. She got buried this week in Detroit. So I appreciate that and the work that the city of Jackson is supporting with Habitat. Lastly, I just want to say that I am grateful and we are grateful as an organization to have been awarded the funds to build a veteran transition home. It will be in Reverend Dr. Kimberly Mitchell's name. She is also the person that donated $600 to us to purchase 2 of the 4 properties that we were able to get from the city of Jackson. So she was an amazing person. She did 21 years in the Army, making it to rank of Master Sergeant. She also did 19 years as a Department of Defense civilian, as both military and Navy. So I just want to say thank you. And we as an organization are just happy to be here and present in this space at this moment to do everything that we can do and everything that we are doing. So we appreciate the support. Thank you.
Sheila Everts. Okay. That concludes public comment.
I move for a 5-minute recess.
Moved and supported. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed the same. We are in recess for 5 minutes. Check, check. Okay, looking for a motion and support to come back from recess.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We have returned. Next item, and if you will, please refresh your screens, just so that way we can make sure that the voting apparatuses are able to come up properly. We are through item 6, and item 7 brings us down to item number 8. Looking for a motion and support on the consent calendar.
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved and triple supported. Any discussion on the item? Seeing or hearing none, the clerk will tally and display the vote. Item passes unanimous. There is no other business. That brings us down to item number 10. Looking for a motion and support for the approval of the third one-year contract extension with Executive Property Management of Jackson for downtown sidewalks, parking lot snow removal, and police department sidewalk and parking lot snow removal at a cost of $93,063.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion?
So, this is the third of a one-year contract. So how many one-year contracts are there? Okay. Okay. 5. So it's not, then it'll go out to bid? Okay. You sure?
Sure.
Okay.
Any other questions? Seeing or hearing none, the clerk will tally and display the vote. Item passes unanimous, brings us down to item B. Looking for a motion and support to approve the purchase of one 2024 Ford F-250 4x4 regular cab XL from LaFontaine Ford for $48,568, fitted with a Monroe MCB 96M4816 service body from Truck and Trailer Specialties for $29,789 under my deal contract following number for a total purchase of $78,357.
So move.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, the clerk will tally and display the vote. Item passes unanimous, brings us down to item C. Looking for a motion and support to approve the purchase of a new 2024 Super Products Camel Max Sewer Vac Truck from M-Tech in the amount of $588,161.28 through the Jackson County DOT CoPro Plus contract number 2023 JC 060-M.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, clerk will tally and display the vote. Item passes unanimous, brings us down to item D. Looking for a motion and support to approve the award of the 2025 Major Street Engineering Contract to Hubble Roth and Clark Incorporated of Jackson, Michigan, in the amount of $209,899.20, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the appropriate documents in accordance with the purchasing agreement. Agent.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I see that this project is being paid with a combination of funds. Can you give some clarity about the special assessments?
I would defer that question
Good evening, Council. Can you hear me okay? Is this mic on? Perfect. So this contract, it's for the engineering services to get the project out to bid. It's not for the physical construction services. This contract is for one street. It's for Ganson Street, where we want to both twofold. Ganson Street is a major street for this section. Between Elm Ave and the East City limits is in poor condition as isolated areas of fatigue cracking. And so we want to fix it. We want to make sure that this major street is safe passage for emergency vehicles as well as the residences. Number two, there's lead service lines feeding into these residential properties. So to avoid cutting into new pavement, we do intend to replace the lead service lines in 2025. Followed by repaving Ganson Street in 2026. The water main and lead service line portion of this project is being paid out through water funds. The milling, as well as the street reconstruction, we do have a grant that will pay for, in large part, the construction. But in order to qualify for that grant, we do need to have some match by those who benefit most, that is the residents of that property. So this contract is just for the engineering services. It's not for the special assessments to construct the street itself. So no, the residents are not being assessed for the engineering work.
Wow, you did good, dude.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Seeing or hearing none, clerk will tally and display the vote. Okay. Item D passes unanimous, brings us down to item E. Looking for a motion and support for the approval of a third extension of the 2022 as-needed materials testing services contract with Professional Services Industries of Lansing, Michigan, under the estimated amount of $125,000.
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion on the item? Seeing or hearing none, clerk will tally and display the vote. Item passes unanimous. Brings us down to item F, looking for a motion and support to authorize submission of the 2023 Consolidated Performance and Evaluation Report, otherwise known as CAPER, to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion on the item? Seeing or hearing none, clerk will tally and display the vote. Item passes unanimous, brings us down to item G. Looking for a motion and support to approve substantial amendment 1 for the reallocation of home funds, adopt the resolution to amend the appropriate budget, and approve submission of the substantial amendment to the Department of Housing and Urban Development.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, clerk will tally and display the vote. Item passes unanimous. Brings us down to item H, looking for a motion and support to approve substantial amendment number 7 for the reallocation of CDBG CV funds, adopt the resolution to amend the appropriate budget, and approve the submission of the substantial amendment to the Department of Housing and Urban Development.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, clerk will tally and display the vote. Item passes unanimous, brings us down to item I. Looking for a motion and support for approval of the proposed zoning ordinance amendments to section 28-5 definitions, section 28-71 permitted and conditional uses, site and building design standards, section 28-100, and section 28-145 conditional uses.
So move.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion?
Just a question, Mr. Mayor. Was there a specific situation that led to these proposed changes?
Mr. Attorney?
To be perfectly honest, I don't know that there was a specific impetus in terms of a project necessarily, but my strong supposition is that something is on the horizon, which is why Planning Commission made the recommendation they did. Mr. Wood might have some more insight.
Yeah, the reason for this is that there is not, pending our approval of this change to the zoning ordinance, there is not really a way for vacant schools, churches, other large facilities like that, of which we have several, to be reused as anything other than their original intended use. And so this is part of a way to make sure that our zoning, like, regulations allow for the redevelopment of that kind of property.
Any other discussion? Seeing or hearing none, clerk will tally and display the vote. Item passes unanimous. And we were doing so well with unanimous votes. Brings us down to item item J. Looking for a motion and support for a Phase 3 marijuana license for Smoke Holdings Company, LLC.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, the clerk will tally and display the vote. And item passes 6-1. And brings us down to item K, looking for a motion and support on the resolution for renaming Milwaukee Street from Alpine Lane to Alpine Lane South to the city limits at Dale Street to Carl Breeding Way.
So move.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion?
I do have a question about, one of the residents asked why way and not street or avenue. Is there a story there, or is it just kind of an arbitrary? Sounded nice.
Sounded nice.
Cool. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. That was a good question. Had a nice ring to it. Seeing or hearing no further questions on the item, the clerk will tally and display the vote. And the item passes unanimously. That brings us down to city council member comments. Councilmember Robinson.
It's been a minute since I had to be first. It used to always be me first. But thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank everybody for coming out to a meeting today. It certainly sometimes is a little tough, you know, to make that decision and make that call. However, I was on the front end, and I'm speaking to the Carl Breeding Way. I was on the front end of that as I was leaving the NAACP. The connection and the ask came to me and trickled over to Daniel because he succeeded me as president of the NAACP. I don't want to go over this over and over again, but Will, you did say it very well. But Mr. Breeding, I feel, is deserving. I think it will mean something, and I certainly think his legacy would mean something to my children and grandchildren down through the years, and it's someone that they probably can find something in my home that relates to him as well. So I just want to say, I appreciate the vote tonight. And Mr. Breeding, I'm sure, is happy to see that we were able to give him some more honor and glory, which he didn't always get, I guess I can say it like that. But NAACP did recognize him, and I think it's an awesome thing for us to give him some more accolades here in the city. I do also want to speak to, I was misspoken, and that's just me. I'm going to let you know if I've said something that was not correct, and find myself corrected. I do find myself corrected. I think I was stuck on the fact that Carl and Dan were elected in the same year. However, Carl's passing did, in his tenure on city council, and Dan did serve the first term I served on city council, so it makes sense. It does make sense. But I stand corrected. Dan did serve more years than Carl did. So with that, I think that's everything for me tonight, Mr. Mayor.
All right, Vice Mayor Dancy.
No comments.
And Council Member Gunn.
I have no comments tonight, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Council Member Forgray.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I too would like to say that I misspoke a little bit when I was talking about Milwaukee Street. I said there's a lot of history there. There is actually, Milwaukee is the Algonquin word for good place. And the reason I know that is because there's a scene in Wayne's World where Alice Cooper says that. So with that being said, I do think it's better that we name that street after a local advocate and leader and not an SNL spinoff. So, thanks.
Councilmember Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. I would like to announce that on Monday, September 30th, from 6 to 8 p.m., I will be hosting a Ward 5 neighborhood meeting at the Hive Building, 729 West Michigan Ave, Suite 102. It is located directly next to Jackson First Presbyterian Church. Also, the very following day, October 1st, as we all know, the 100 Homes continue to make progressive momentum in our community. In connection with that, I would announce that at 6 to 8, a roadmap to home ownership will be taking place at the Jackson District Library, and my hope is to have City of Jackson staff there to share the updates about the 100 homes, as well as having the opportunity for our community members to speak with lenders and individuals that can help them make a decision toward a forever home.
You said that ward meeting was September 29th from what time?
September 30th.
Sorry.
Monday, September 30th at the Hive Building, 6 to 8 p.m. All are welcome to join. We will provide light refreshments and cider and donuts and a conversation with Councilwoman Hunt.
Councilmember Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was honored to have a representative here tonight for the invocation from Temple Beth Israel, which is Michigan's second oldest Reformed congregation, founded here as part of our community in 1862. I am glad that he left before being subjected to a very unfortunate anti-Semitic comment we had here, but was happy to have him here. I'd also like to encourage everybody to take a couple minutes out of your day, drive by the picket lines out on the east side, wave, honk, show your support, maybe get out and have a conversation with those folks. We got over 500 neighbors who are standing up for themselves and for our whole community to protect their retirement and their health care. And our whole community is going to benefit when this contract disagreement comes to an end and the company and the union come to a fair and equitable agreement. And hopefully that's sooner rather than later. I'd like to thank our public commenters who prompted me to remember that I have to renew my NAACP membership. I was talking to the mayor during the recess. I am planning to go to the breakfast tomorrow, but baby Josephine's going through some challenges with sleep training. So I've been awake since 2 a.m. And if that, if that pattern continues, you will not see me tomorrow. And I hope you'll accept my excuse. Mr. Forgrave, if we are naming streets after SNL skits, I volunteer Ward 4 for either Cowbell Lane or, Macon Copies Way or something like that. Welcome to the new city staff. Jeff, great job. Great job. And as always, in all earnestness, thank you to everybody on the city staff for all the great work you guys do. Thank you to the clerk and the clerk's office for, as we get through the absentee ballot season, I know this is peak time, and I know that, hopefully there isn't the same levels of controversy over nothing that we've seen in the past couple election cycles, but just want to make sure the clerk and her staff and our, especially our underpaid but less underpaid than they used to be election day workers, they got the support of most of our community, and I'm happy for the work that they do. I also want to shout out Chandra at DPW for your work in bringing the motor pool back to health, and thank you, Mr. Osborne, for making sure that we all know about that. That concludes my report, Mr. Mayor. Back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. We are now back to our regular program. Thank you so much for everybody's comments tonight. Thank you for all the citizens who came out. We value your opinion to the highest extent. I tell people all the time, I don't work for City of Jackson. I work for the 30,000 or whatever number of people who voted me in. I represent all 30,000 people. So that's who I work for, and that's who I answer to. So we absolutely take your comments into high consideration. Tonight, during my comments about Kyle Breeding, I was trying not to get emotional because of how personal it is to me that we honored those who came before us, who walked before us. And at some point, and we don't want this to happen too soon because he's still doing great work, when former council member Dan Greer leaves us permanently, I would be honored to honor him in that same exact way because this work is oftentimes so thankless, and I know how much time and dedication it takes away. Even right now, Baby Joe could be taking them steps, and Councilmember Wood is right here. And those are the moments that we risk losing and missing by being here and answering to the call of being a public servant and being in these spaces. So I'm very happy with the outcome, and thank all the council for the support in renaming that street because I know how meaningful it is going to be to the community, to the work that he did in this community around the state, and the effect that it will have for years to come with that change. Just want to also say congratulations to Jacob and Leticia and the whole rest of the committee who put on the Hispanic Heritage Festival. It was another great festival with so much great food. It was so tempting to revert from my pescatarian ways. But thank goodness somebody had some good fruit out there with some chamoy and some other seasonings on it. So I was safe yet another day. And also to Beats in the Park, I know some community members may have had some concerns about the fact they had a consumption license at their event this year, and I didn't hear anything about the event, which makes me assume that the event went extremely well. I had my own event that I was at that night, or else I would have stopped through just to check on them. But I came through earlier in the day, saw how many tents, how many vendors, and how they are pouring back into the community by stimulating the the economy of the small businesses and small business owners, and also promote music. It's nice to have a young group of people who are getting engaged in making sure that we have community and celebrating community and music. So just proud of both of those groups for the events that they had this weekend. On Thursday at 5:30 p.m. At the King Center, we have a MLK Corridor Authority meeting. I invite you all out to be present. Council, you guys have to stick with me here because it's $10 on the line. And I just want to apologize to our patrons who had to sit through the Skibidi, Ohio Beta Riz comments that some of our public commenters made. Sophia, you owe me $10 because I told you I was going to say Skibidi, Ohio Riz, and Beta before the end of September. I want my money when I get home. That will conclude my comments for the evening. Do you have any comments for us?
I do. 14 pages.
Okay,
No.
we ready. We ready.
Just reminding everybody that this weekend is the city cleanup day.
Yes.
You got to tell your constituents to come out, and also the chili cook-off downtown.
Yes.
That is it.
Thank you so much.
So move.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.